Have you ever heard that something like 98% of people, like, never really hit that level of wealth or success they dream of? Kind of makes you think, huh?
Yeah, it's a big number, that's for sure.
So today, we're going to try and, like, really unpack some powerful ideas from a, pretty classic book.
Sure. And this isn't just going to be like skimming the surface. No, we're going deep, like a deep dive.
Yeah.
Specifically for you, someone who really wants to understand these like fundamental principles.
Exactly. We're talking about Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, but we're really going to focus in on those core concepts, especially from those early chapters and, like, prefaces and stuff.
Right, like the foundation, the
Well,
groundwork.
And this book, just so everyone knows, came about from a pretty incredible project.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like over 20 years, Hill interviewed more than 500 people who had, made serious fortunes.
Wow.
And he did all this because the legendary Andrew Carnegie inspired him to, uncover those shared secrets, those principles that just kept popping up in their stories.
So there's, like, a pattern.
Exactly. And Carnegie was adamant that this, what he called magic formula for wealth creation, shouldn't be a secret. He wanted it out there.
That's pretty cool,
So
actually.
he even envisioned it being like part of the education system.
Mhm.
So our goal in this deep dive is to break it down. We're going to look closely at, desire, the real intense kind. Then there's specialized knowledge, the kind that's actually useful.
Right, not just random facts.
Exactly. Then we'll dive into the power of imagination, making plans, making decisions. And of course, we got to talk about the stuff that holds us back, like fear. You ready?
Let's do it.
Okay, so first up, desire.
Desire. Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, but Hill's talking about burning desire.
Yeah.
Not just wishing or hoping. It's like total commitment to that goal.
Like, can't live without it kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, think about Edwin C. Barnes, the guy who was obsessed with working with Thomas Edison.
Oh, yeah. He's a good example. He didn't just send a resume. He went to Orange, New Jersey with one goal: to work with Edison. Any job.
Exactly. He was even willing to start at the bottom just to be in that environment, to get closer to his goal.
And he burned all bridges behind him. Right. Like, no going back.
Absolutely. No backup plan. And that's what a burning desire does. It forces you to focus all your energy. No distractions.
Makes sense. Now, how about the story of Mr. Darby, the gold miner? He's kind of the opposite, right?
Yeah, a little bit. He and his uncle found gold, a good vein, but then gave up.
Why?
Seemed too hard. They hit a tough spot and just quit. And guess what? The huge vein of gold was literally just 3 feet further.
Oh, no way. Talk about bad timing.
Right. And Hill talks about how every failure brings with it the seed of an equivalent advantage. They quit right before their big win.
So persistence is key.
Absolutely. And in terms of desire, Darby's regret later shows the huge price of wavering. He learned the hard way.
That setbacks are part of the process.
Exactly. So we got to cultivate that money consciousness. Like, immerse yourself in the desire for money to the point where you see yourself already having it. It's beyond wishing. It's believing.
Like manifesting, kind of.
Yeah, in a way. It's
Yeah.
aligning your inner self with your goals.
Yeah.
And Carnegie, he truly believed this mental prep, the dreaming, hoping, desiring, planning, that was all essential before actually getting rich.
Wow. So your thoughts really do matter.
Big time.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about faith. Remember the story Hill tells about his son, the one born deaf mute?
Yeah, that's a powerful one.
He had this unwavering desire, this faith that his son would eventually hear and speak. And against all odds, it happened.
It's like the power of belief made the impossible possible.
Right. Hill breaks it down, mixing faith with that deep desire, constantly communicating that desire, and his son crucially developing belief.
So it wasn't just the father's desire alone, it became shared.
Exactly. And that's powerful. It tells us that our limitations are often more in our minds than reality.
Okay, so we have this intense desire. What's next?
Let's shift gears to knowledge. But not just any knowledge. We're talking specialized knowledge, the kind that gets you results.
So not just trivia night knowledge.
Right. General knowledge is good, but it doesn't always translate to wealth. Think about academics. Many are incredibly knowledgeable, but not necessarily wealthy.
They're experts in knowledge itself.
Exactly. It's focused, specialized knowledge, applied strategically, that tends to generate real financial success.
Okay, so how did people like Henry Ford and Thomas Edison, who didn't have tons of formal education, become so successful?
They were masters of specialized knowledge. Ford revolutionized car manufacturing. Edison, groundbreaking inventions. They became experts in their fields regardless of their schooling.
So it's not about degrees, it's about the right kind of knowledge.
Exactly. Identify what you need for your goals and go get it. And this isn't a one-time thing. Successful people never stop learning in their areas of focus.
So lifelong learning is essential.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the world is constantly changing. The demand for specialists keeps growing. Hill even talks about night schools, correspondence courses, ways to get that training while you're busy with life.
Makes sense. But it's not enough to just have knowledge. You have to use it, right?
Right. Hill gives examples of people who used specialized knowledge and combined it with imagination. Like, there was this salesman during the Depression.
The Depression. Wow, that's a tough time to be selling.
Exactly. But he created a wholesale bookkeeping service, totally new. And then there's this woman who made prepared plans to market personal services for her son. It's about being creative, seeing the needs, and filling them.
So ingenuity is key.
Right. And Hill talks about not starting at the very bottom. Beginning a step or two higher gives you a better view. You see opportunities more clearly. He uses Dan Halpin, who was really strategic in his career moves, always looking for positions where he could learn and move up.
Okay, so we have the burning desire, the specialized knowledge. What's next?
Imagination. The workshop of the mind, as Hill calls it. It's where it all comes together.
So like daydreaming, but with a purpose.
Yeah, sort of. Hill actually talks about two kinds of imagination.
Yeah.
Synthetic and creative. Synthetic is like rearranging existing ideas, concepts, knowledge into new combinations.
So like problem-solving, strategizing.
Exactly. Then there's creative imagination. This is where brand new ideas come from. The hunches, the inspiration, the aha moments.
Light bulb going off.
Right. And Hill emphasizes all big fortunes start with an idea. And ideas are born from imagination. Like, think about that story of the old doctor and the young clerk.
The one where the clerk bought the doctor's old formula and equipment for almost nothing.
Yeah. The clerk wasn't buying stuff. He was buying the idea. And that idea turned into a huge business.
He saw potential where the doctor didn't?
Exactly. The clerk maybe had that burning desire or a fresh perspective. So an idea is just the beginning. It needs that imagination and action to grow.
Okay, so what about the story of Dr. Frank Gonzalez and his $1 million sermon? That's a classic.
Right. He wanted to start a college, but had no money. So he uses his imagination to create this powerful sermon, laying out exactly what he'd do with $1 million if he had it.
And then someone actually gave him the money, right?
Exactly. A guy named Mr. Armour was so moved by the sermon, he donated the entire amount. And it just shows a powerful desire, a clear plan, faith in your vision. It can bring amazing results.
It's inspiring, for sure.
It is. And Hill stresses that real wealth doesn't just come from hard work. It comes from those demands based on principles and ideas. Ideas from the imagination. Think about the early days of movies, radio. Those who saw the potential early on, they made huge fortunes.
So being ahead of the curve.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that brings us to the mastermind. This is where individual imagination gets amplified through collaboration.
Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
Right. Hill's point is that no one, no matter how smart or experienced, knows enough to get truly wealthy alone. It's about coordinating efforts, sharing knowledge, working in harmony.
It's rating synergy.
Exactly. That combined brain power, diverse perspectives, it can achieve so much more than any one person. Hill says, develop your plans with your mastermind group. Get their input, their support. It's like your own personal think tank.
Okay, so we have the desire, the knowledge, the imagination, and now the power of collaboration. What's next?
Now we got to get organized. We're talking organized planning, turning those desires into action.
So no more procrastination.
Right. Hill says, good plans are the foundation of wealth building. Your success depends on how sound those plans are. He even uses the example of Samuel Insull, a big name in utilities. He had good plans, but then made changes during the Depression that messed everything up.
So plans have to be flexible, able to adapt.
Yeah, exactly. And then Hill talks about the difference between leaders and followers. Their incomes are often hugely different. He lists those key leadership qualities: courage, self-control, a strong sense of fairness, clear plans, always doing more than expected.
Going the extra mile.
Right. But he also gives us a list of what makes leaders fail. Things like not organizing details, being unwilling to do humble tasks, expecting pay for just knowledge and not action, fear of competition, lack of imagination.
So many pitfalls.
There are. And then he gives advice on how to market yourself. It's crucial for anyone starting out. He stresses having a professional brief ready.
Like a resume, but more detailed.
Yeah, kind of. It's about your background, education, experience, references, even a photo.
Yeah.
You're presenting yourself as a valuable asset.
Makes sense.
What's interesting is that Hill talks about this shift from jobs to partnerships between employers and employees. He says, follow the golden rule. Provide excellent service. Be a go-giver, not just a go-getter.
So creating value, building good relationships.
Exactly. Carnegie believed in that strongly. It's recognizing that your success is tied to the success of those you serve.
Okay, so we have our plans, but then procrastination hits. What do we do?
Well, Hill talks about decision, the power of it, mastering that procrastination.
No more putting things off.
Exactly. He says, leaders decide quickly and firmly. And indecision, well, that's a habit that often starts early. Maybe the education system doesn't emphasize it enough.
So we're not trained to be decisive.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And Hill says having a clear purpose in your education is so important. Indecision can really mess up career choices. He even says a lot of people end up in jobs they don't want because they lacked a clear decision and plan.
Wow.
And think about Henry Ford. He had this vision for the car, and he stuck with it even when people doubted him. It's about being persistent, following through.
So weak desires lead to weak results.
Exactly. And you build persistence by fueling those desires, having a definite goal and plan. And Hill talks about how poverty consciousness can develop without us even realizing it. We got to fight that by creating a money consciousness deliberately.
Thinking positively about finances.
Exactly. And persistence is key to overcoming that initial resistance, to not give up before you even start.
And then we get to the, I guess, scariest part, fear.
Right. The 6 ghosts of fear, as Hill calls them. These are huge roadblocks to getting what we want.
Fear can really paralyze us.
It can. And Hill says it all starts with indecision. That's the seedling of fear. Then comes doubt, then full-blown fear.
So making decisions is crucial.
Absolutely. And he identifies the 6 big fears: poverty, criticism, ill health, loss of love, old age, and death. Pretty much all other fears fall under one of these.
So these are the root fears.
Right. And fear of poverty, he says that's the most destructive one. It comes from that, instinct to compete for resources, It talks about how being broke, out of work, it can really damage your sense of self.
It's a vicious cycle.
And then there's fear of criticism. It can kill your initiative, your imagination, your individuality. Hill points out how negative criticism, especially as kids, can really stick with us.
So our past experiences can hold us back.
Yeah, and he touches on the other fears too. Ill health, often made worse by worrying, loss of love, the fear of being alone.
Fear of old age, which often ties back to fear of poverty, and then, of course, the fear of death.
Right, the big one. And what's the antidote to all this worry and fear? Hill says it's making those prompt, firm decisions, taking action. Don't let indecision feed those fears.
So facing our fears head on.
And he makes a final point. Fear is contagious. When you're full of fear, it affects you, but it also affects those around you. So by conquering your fears, you're not just helping yourself.
You're helping everyone.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. What are those key takeaways from Think and Grow Rich that you, our listeners, should be thinking about?
It all starts with desire, but not just any desire. It's got to be that burning, can't stop me kind of desire. And it has to be paired with faith, belief in yourself, in your vision. Then you need the right knowledge, the specialized kind that will actually move you towards your goals.
Not just any random facts.
Right. And then use your imagination. This is where you create the roadmap. And don't be afraid to collaborate. Find your mastermind group, people who will support you, challenge you, and help you grow.
So many amazing insights. But it's not enough to just listen to this deep dive, right? You have to do something with this knowledge.
Exactly. Take some time to really reflect on these principles. Which one speaks to you the most? Which one feels the most relevant to your current situation, to your aspirations?
This is where the rubber meets the road. You got to take action.
And as you reflect, I have a question for you. What bridges in your life need burning? What are you holding on to that might be preventing you from fully committing to your dreams?
That's a powerful question.
And one more. What specialized knowledge do you need to acquire? What skills, what information will help you turn those aspirations into reality?
These are questions worth pondering, and we encourage you to go back to Think and Grow Rich. Revisit those ideas, and most importantly, figure out how to apply them to your own life. Thank you for joining us.
Until next time.